Hello everybody. So it's been officially 1 month since I've been back from Peru, and I tried to make a video earlier but it just wasn't really resonating with me, so I think I'm going to talk about my 5th ayahuasca ceremony, which was very prominent in my mind, and although I didn't really journal the exact experience, I drew a picture with a little bit of words about it, but it explained a lot of other experiences that I had, or ayahuasca experiences that I had. But I guess I'll just begin right now. And like I said, or like I tried to explain, this ceremony was so similar and carried so many of the same images and attributes of my other ceremonies, so I think it's the perfect ceremony to make a video upon so that you guys can understand the basis of pretty much all of my ayahuasca ceremonies, maybe other than one, but for the most part this is how they all went. So maybe, no, I'm not going to try to show you the picture because they're not very good. I remember, well, first of all, this ceremony was just me. I was the only one, and my shaman, it was myself and my shaman who sang Icaros to me throughout the whole night, and I had a lot of fear about doing this alone for obviously many reasons, but a big fear also was because most of my ceremonies before this were very traumatic, and I was at this point very done with ayahuasca and having these types of experiences, and I was supposed to leave a few days later. But I remember I wrote a note down under my pillow before I fell asleep asking if I should do one more ceremony, and in my dream, I think it was validated quite clearly that I was supposed to do another ceremony, so this is the last one in Peru. So it starts off with very, I'd say, visual. It was very visual and peaceful. Sorry if you can hear my cat. Like I said in my other video, it's almost too difficult to explain visuals and almost irrelevant to try to explain visuals, but it was very similar in the fact that I felt a presence of Kali, so it's a Hindu goddess, the Divine Mother, and I honestly thought that this ceremony and trip wasn't going to be very heavy or extreme because it all felt very subtle for quite a while, because I tried a different strand of ayahuasca, which was, it worked with me better, but it was still really intense towards the end. But, so she showed me, so Kali was showing me every single thing you could think of that she represents. She showed me all, it felt like all of the universe. She showed me the earth. She showed me, how humans were created, what emotion was. She showed me just absolutely everything, how things are created, sustained, how they are destroyed. She showed me what it is to be empowered and to be fearless. And I honestly remember laying back with my hands like this, just like enjoying everything like I was on vacation. And I remember like experiencing parts of my ego that were like, oh, you can handle this, this is nothing, and the ego kept coming up and like interjecting in my visions, which I automatically knew. I was like, oh, it's not that strong of a dose, because normally during ceremony I had no thought, I had nothing. My consciousness was just over there normally, and I couldn't interject with thought. My ego couldn't poke and prod at things, but for some odd reason I could for this one. And so I remember having thoughts outside of visions, and that felt like me, and then other things that felt like Kali, and like, so as she went on to show me what I was, she began to also show me dark aspects that are also me and her, I guess. Pretty much anything that you can think of that's dark, so anything correlated with sex, anything that's correlated with abuse, just all of it. She showed me that it was her. At one point, I started to feel that I was losing that control of the ego, having commentary over my ceremony. But at one point, she asked me if I wanted to heal, and of course I said yes. And that was the start of the insanity of the trip, was me answering yes to that. So I remember specifically she was talking to me and guiding me through the whole process of what she thought was healing. So she told me to open my legs, and I remember a snake going inside of me. And disclaimer, this freaked me out during the whole ceremony because we actually had a poisonous, like a venomous snake in the ceiling of the building, or not the Maloka, but so a lot of the time during the trip I didn't know if it was a real snake that was actually up there that they were trying to catch and couldn't find, or an ayahuasca snake. So that freaked me out. But anyways, so the snake went in as she was doing the healing, and I remember feeling empowered when the snake was in the root chakra, and the sacral, I was fine. I felt sexual energy, and for the first time it felt empowering for the very first time, and I felt at peace and comforted. I remember though, she knew where I was going to get caught because I had the voice come over me saying, "Don't get stuck." And so then that was kind of alarming for me, and she kept telling me things like, "Don't fall asleep, don't get stuck, don't get caught up in sexual desire," things like that. So I tried my best, but I remember there's a certain part where the snake goes to my solar plexus, and it all explodes and ends at this point, because I remember specifically the snake went there, and it felt as if everything became just fractals of just fire and not so positive passion, but fear. All of the traumatic visions came up. I felt as if I was falling in a black hole. I remember specifically I kept fighting this serpent or snake, and I felt I was being choked by it and constrained, and in my head I would call out for help, because at this point I didn't know reality versus vision, and so I actually couldn't tell if this was the venomous snake that the men had found earlier, and that it was all over my body, and that I was actually going to die that night, because I thought that, you know, I'm not in a capacity to be able to talk and ask for help, and this thing is all over me and like slithering around my neck, and I know words can't really describe how that would feel, but you could imagine being under a substance and not knowing reality versus medicine of a venomous snake all up and around you. So yeah, at that point my ego completely flared, and I began my bad trip that is always repetitive and, as usual, same visions as my other bad trips, which happen to be all my trips. So from that theme, it's similar to my other video. I started to get visions about sex, rape, vomit, just a lot of fear, agony, trauma. A huge theme though was with the snake. It became a fearful thing for me because I didn't know if I I let an entity inside of me, this thing that asked me to heal, I didn't know if it was from the devil or not. I didn't know if I trusted the right thing, and this is why my ego is flaring, because I thought that I mistrusted, and I had some, like, I don't know, energy or entity sucking up my life force. And so I was, at that point, felt like I was dealing with morals, which was associated with my pain with sex, was with morals. And as a, okay, I don't want to go too far into detail with that, but I guess I can just say, like, as a child, when things happen to you, it's all a basis of morals, because as a kid you don't know those things are wrong, yet you live your whole life thinking that, you think about the morals and how you felt like you deserve childhood trauma, but as an adult you can see that those things are not supposed to happen to children. So that was very intertwined. During the ceremony, was trying to figure out morals and my relationship to what's good versus what's bad. So I was dealing with the snake for a while, and then it's interesting because we have a cat that lives there, Gato the cat, and the cat, my legs were kind of spread open while I was going through my whole traumatic experience, and the cat decided to lay between my legs, and I didn't know what was happening, but it felt like the cat was like making, or I guess I can just say that it felt like the cat was eating me out, and it was making like really strange like sounds, like it was, you know how when a cat's getting attacked, those kind of sounds, it was making that kind of sound while I felt like I was being choked by a snake. And then I realized that it was happening, and I just started to scream, no, 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 and I realized that I was being raped by the cat. It felt like it. And somehow I started to see how, I don't know, I realized during the ceremony that the snake and the cat were sexual symbols, and how I, for so long, laid there stiff with the cat, like, touching me the way it was, which I don't know if it really was or not, but I laid there stiff, afraid to even call out for help because of morals. Again, I didn't know if it was right or wrong. But then eventually I got up and I was screaming, and yeah. At this point, I had to try to make it to the bathroom because I thought it was actually like peeing my pants from everything that happened, because during the ceremony, I think with the cat situation, I feel like some dark part of me was, I don't even want to say, but like, was like aroused, and I started to like feel really scared, and I felt like I was being possessed as usual. And I don't know, I just thought that I was losing consciousness pretty much from the overabundance of trauma and fear I was experiencing with these two animals. So at this point, the shaman came up to me, and he was singing icaros and trying to pull out areas of blockages, especially around my solar plexus. And I remember looking at him and just feeling totally defeated and ashamed and full of pity. And I felt disgusted because like he had to pull up my shirt a little bit to touch the skin of my belly to like pull out these things. And I remember I was pushing him away because I didn't even want to be touched because everything felt wrong. Everything, even though it wasn't. But I remember he walked away at one point saying, if you want to heal, you have to choose this. And I rejected the love and healing that I was requiring. And I remember he walked away, and I just kept saying, I need light, and like I had to lay there in my own self-pity and my own despair for quite a while. Then finally I went outside, and I chose to just breathe and try to look at the air, but he went out there with me, and I remember I was just trying to talk normally, and my ego, I just kept saying to him, like, I'm so sorry, like, my ego's everywhere, I can't even talk to you, and I kept saying how sorry, because I was for being selfish, and how incapable I was of speaking. And I remember I went back inside, and I laid there, and I was just, the whole ceremony trip began again. Like, I was losing consciousness, and he would talk to me, and he was telling me things, and I couldn't tell what he was saying versus what I thought he was saying. And yeah, so I fell back into it, visions of seeing my body in that pattern that I always see during ceremony, where it's like the infinity symbol, but it's my body naked, and it's like my hand and my vagina and my hand in my mouth, like making myself throw up and vomiting. And I just kept seeing that over and over, and then I kept seeing my family, and like, and then I feel like this is so random, I'm just trying to remember things, but so yeah, he would talk to me, and he kept saying things, and my head would turn it into something that he wasn't saying, and it somehow got to the point where I saw a vision of Adam and Eve, and I realized that they were brothers and sisters, and from the ban of all of humanity, we were born out of incest. And so my whole ceremony was about how you can't escape what humans are created of, and how every single family is born out of incest, which is really dark, but it was the truth. That's all I saw. And I saw my family's pain. I saw my pain. Hold on, sorry, I'm just trying to see what else. And I don't even know. A lot of it's just insane. The whole time I could sense, though, that I was just running from my ego, and I was running from my pain. And he just kept telling me, like, you can't run. And then he would tell me things like, you have to communicate, and I wouldn't communicate. I just stopped talking altogether. It was really difficult. And the rest of the night, honestly, even after I went back to my room, was such a struggle. There was a huge storm in the whole night. I was just laying in my bed, and I had this feeling that someone was going to come in there and just, like, rape me and kill me, and it was really bad. And the whole night, like, I was going like this with my hands, like, and like trying to break my fingers, and I always do that during my ceremonies, even if I'm not talking at all. Like, I'm like twisting my hands and like biting my skin really hard, and it's like a form of trying to escape. Another big thing, though, I think I said this with my other ceremony, but I remember the only thing that ever helped me was gratitude when I was going through what I was going through. So if I would see a really horrific vision, the only thing I could say that would help was, I'm sorry, or it was, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And I just kept saying thank you, thank you, thank you, even with all of the terrible visions. And all of my ceremonies, I also said, it's not mine, and then I'd come to the conclusion, it is mine, I'm sorry, thank you. Like, it's so funny, like, every ceremony was the same damn thing. That's why I was just so sick and tired of going through ceremonies. It felt like I didn't overcome anything, but I don't know if I have so far, actually. And a huge message that I remember hearing was the fact that, okay, so, I don't know if I've said this before, but in all my ceremonies, there's a huge correlation between food and sex. And so it kept telling me, you can't keep refusing to live, so eating and partaking in sex, I guess. You can't keep refusing to live. You are human. And so my pain just kept coming from the fact that how badly, like, I wanted to refuse my life to die. And it just kept saying, you are human, you chose this. Like, you chose it. And I was so, it's just filled with so much pity for the fact that I chose this, and I felt like, and I sometimes still feel like, I have no idea how I'll move forward and how anyone moves forward, and other than the fact of trying to have as much gratitude for life as you can, because I know every ceremony and everything in life teaches you there's pain always, and how do you respect it and then just move forward. So yeah, that was like the basis of that ceremony, and I know it sounds really dark, but again, like, that's pretty much what I experienced every ceremony, and it was always seemed like a battle of choosing life over death. Do you choose healing? Do you choose love or darkness? And I was always so ashamed because it felt like I always chose to go back to the pain. And whether it was from like an energy of my parents, me taking on their pain and choosing to go back to them, or my pain, or I just somehow didn't know how, or I just didn't know how to choose love and forgiveness, like, fully, because I would say, in the midst of it all, I'd say I'm sorry and I forgive and I'm done, and then it would just keep coming up and up and up. That's what ayahuasca does. It's like, are you really done? Are you really done? And so, I'm sure, as usual, I'm forgetting a lot, and I kind of feel bad. I feel like this video was a bit disorganized, but I hope that you guys understood the basis of it. And I hate to admit the fact that most of my ceremonies were this, and that I had only a few moments during each ceremony that were light and beautiful, but for the most part, all my ceremonies were about moving past trauma. And I hope you enjoyed, and don't judge too harshly upon what I experienced, because again, this is my personal experience, and if you don't resonate, that's fine. I respect that, but try to be as kind as possible. So thank you for listening.